here with what is cool. So I don't know if anyone wants to share how they would describe fullness, but I thought these were interesting ways of, like, I know when I'm over full, like I definitely know that feeling, but that idea of just like pleasant or neutral, I don't know if I could even put it into words. I think it just feels, I would say, like a groundedness, or like, oh, I've had enough, or I'm not thinking about food anymore because I'm not hungry. But then I'll have all these thoughts, but then I can't eat again until this time, and so I better eat more. So, but just that idea of fullness, if anybody wants to chime in, feel free here.
I'll sh-
I feel like my dad will sometimes, or I remember this from growing up, would be like, "Oh, I'm comfortable," and then he would like just stop eating, or "I'm comfortable, but I'm going to keep eating," or. But I just remember him saying that word, I'm comfortable," and I think that is a key, or a piece of a way to describe fullness. I don't know if anybody else wants to say anything. And then the key to respecting fullness, and we talked about this a couple times ago, is giving yourself unconditional permission to eat. And I know that can feel scary. And we did talk about different emotions and thoughts that come up when we think, oh my gosh, I can eat it all, or I can eat whatever I want, or whatever it is. And but this really is helpful in respecting fullness, because if you're always like kind of playing those diety games in your head, then it's just, I don't know, it's going to be hard to stop. And because you're like, oh, but I don't know if I'm not going to be at this restaurant again, or I don't know, just the way that we can kind of make food, feel like off limits. So, um, if you feel like you're on a diet, or if you have to like leave food on your plate, then it'd be hard. It's hard to give yourself unconditional permission to eat. And that the whole intuitive eating, like, kind of philosophy won't really take hold. And I know it's a hard one. It's not like I'm saying you just have to do this and it'll all be fine. I know it's a really, like, I think it comes in like little layers of, oh, well, okay, yeah, I can't have as many. I'm not going to start saying naming foods, because I know I'm probably setting people off with different foods, but um just, and it's baby steps, right? So I just wanted to add that in about the key. I think it's a key to a lot of the principles, but definitely for respecting fullness. And then, so how to respect your fullness. And so if you're in that like clean your plate club, they call it, then it's hard to or go on kind of an autopilot when it's dinner time. And it's hard to really, know, am I full, or am I just finishing what my portion is? And it's also bringing in that food anthropologist that we talked about a little bit last week, in terms of being more conscious. So conscious awareness eating. And these are like things to strive for. This isn't like, oh, let's just all go out there and do this tomorrow, but to just keep them in your mind in terms of striving for them, pausing in the middle of a meal or snack, and do a taste and or satiety check. So am I, is my food still tasting good? And we'll talk about that more next week in the satisfaction chapter. But, after so many bites, or, quantity of time eating, I kind of stopped tasting it. So stopping mid meal to see, does this still taste good, or how hungry am I think is a really nice way to be conscious. When you finish eating, asking what is your fullness level. And again, it's not to make you feel like you're doing anything wrong, but just to kind of get a baseline. Like, typically, I feel like what's happened for me is I have kind of a pattern now in terms of times that I eat, or foods that I eat, that I kind of know like how long they'll last, how long the fullness will last. But it is just good to know, like, oh yeah, when I have a full meal of something, then I get too full, or maybe next time have half, or I want to have this and I want to have a cookie, so maybe I'll just have half of this and half of a cookie or whatever it is. But then that identify the last bite threshold. I think this was the one that I remember feeling so super sad about when in that exercise, and we'll talk about that later. But just when am I getting close to being done, and really staying present and aware, and then not feeling obligated to leave food on your plate. So one thing that she really reiterates in this chapter is not making intuitive eating another diet, not having feel your fullness and make sure you stay at a 6 or make sure this or make sure that. It's really, don't feel just because you're feeling your fullness doesn't mean I have to leave half on the plate. I mean, you can if you're done and that's what you want, but just that, not making it another way to diet, which I think we can really do easily, make things into rules, right? And then how to increase awareness. So eat without distraction. And this is kind of probably like something that's been talked about forever, right? Like don't eat in front of the TV or don't eat while you're doing this or just have just eat and nothing else. I'm sorry, I'm getting a really dry throat, so I'm going to take a water sip here. And that is ideal. But I would say if that's hard for you, or if that feels like, oh, I can't do that, maybe even starting with one meal, or starting with a part of a meal, or starting breakfast without any devices or papers or anything, and just eating half of your breakfast and then stopping. And then adding in a distraction if you want to. But what I'm saying is, if you're not doing it now, don't feel like you have to do it perfect to just try it. So I want to see your faces. So eat without distraction. That is one way to increase awareness. Create sort of an I'm done ritual. So when you decide to stop eating, like push your plate away or put your napkin on your plate or do a dance or just something where you're like, meal is over. And I remember a friend that used to say, and I think some of this crowd will get this, Elvis has left the building, and just that idea that we're done, meal is over, we're done with eating. More, and it's kind of one of those ways to support like new habits, right? Creating like a little saying or a physical ritual that says to the body and the mind, oh, I think, okay, we're done now. I don't know if I really have that. I think I'll what I usually do is I get up and start doing the dishes, and then I'm like, oh, I guess I'm done. Yeah, I'm done. And so that's one thing that comes to mind. And then the last thing, one other way is to say no, thank you, and not feeling like you defend yourself from obligatory eating. So if you go to a party or a happy hour or a luncheon, not feeling like you have to eat everything or participate in everything. And that just helps, increase your awareness. And it's not that you can't participate in all those things, but not feel it's a way of honoring your fullness by saying I'm done, or I already ate, or I'm not hungry right now, okay. And then the fullness factors, got my full person here. So time is the amount of time that's passed since you last ate. So that's a pretty straightforward thing to consider when you're wondering if, if I'm feeling full or not. Kind of food that you eat, and we'll talk a little bit about this in a second. Did you have something, a lighter snack or a lighter meal, or did you have something more heavy? The initial hunger level, and this is something that, when you read something and you're like, that doesn't apply to me, and I remember proving this. I remember it was early on when I was doing intuitive eating, and I waited like 5 hours, maybe 5 to 6 hours before having a lunch, because I was going out to lunch with a friend, and like we got busy, and I was just like, it'd been 5 hours. And when we sat down to eat, it was like, I was so hungry. And even though I knew like the portion I ate was like, I wanted to eat the whole thing because I was so hungry, but it was like, I don't normally eat all of that. So it was just like, oh, I guess it does make a difference. If my initial hunger level is like ravenous, it's really hard for me to like slow down and eat, in a like not, oh my God, I'm so hungry way. So really knowing your initial hunger level is important. The amount of food, obviously, if you have a lighter or heavier or more for breakfast than you normally do or less, that can affect your fullness. And then social influence. They did find that when people gather together for a meal, they generally eat more and they eat longer. And that the duration of the meal lasts longer. Obviously, there's more people and there's talking, but then a lot of times people will eat more food as well. And so that's not to say don't go out and be social, because of course that brings other benefits as well. But just knowing that, like, oh, maybe checking in and seeing, am I done? Especially if like alcohol is involved, right? Like our wine diet in the beginning, that can sometimes make us not as aware of how full we are if we're drinking as well. And then be aware of air food or fake fullness. And I think as a veteran dieter, I knew all of the stuff to keep me full. The rice cakes, the like Diet Cokes, the things that would just like fill me up to get me through to the next meal. So just knowing like it's kind of a fake fullness. It's not really a real fullness when you're having these things. Now, if you want to throw in like peanut butter on a rice cake or something with something, it can help actually have some substance to the meal. But, eating a bunch of celery isn't really probably going to fill you up, or won't. It'll fill you up for a little bit, but it won't really sustain you. And then I wanted to bring back this inner voice from last time, just because when we're trying to new habits, just really keeping neutral, watching our minds, watching our thoughts, watching our critiques of ourselves. And if you can remember the food anthropologist, who was pretty neutral, just kind of observing, just like reporting on the facts, nothing more, no emotion, no shame, no, you're not doing it good enough. And then, of course, the intuitive eater, who is connected and aware and knows, what their body's needing in that moment, what sounds good. And I don't know if I should even say this. This feels like not even part of the class, but there's way more to do in life than eat. Like I know we're here and we're being intuitive eaters, but it's like if we could be at peace with food and not have food and body image and all of that take up so much of our time, like think of all the amazing things we could be doing, all the fun things we could be doing, all the ways we could be in the world if we weren't like figuring out our breakfasts and lunches and dinners all the time, and yeah, so. But I'm glad you're here to become intuitive eaters. But I'm just saying too, like there's so much other things we could do, right, with our time and our energy, than talk about our food. But it keeps me in business, so we'll keep talking about our food. So how to apply this principle? So start to become more consciously aware when you eat. This is really key. Don't let yourself get too hungry. I know it happens, right? Life happens, schedules change, you get stuck somewhere with no food or whatever it is, but really trying to plan ahead or make sure you're not getting too hungry before a meal. Be aware of gentle fullness cues. I was trying to think of like, is there anything, like I know with the hunger cues, there's things I feel physiologically, like I get a little fuzzy in my thinking, or I feel more tired, and I don't really know if there's anything. I mean, obviously my stomach will feel more full. I don't know. There probably are like little signals we could tune into when we're like getting full. But just being aware of that gentle fullness cues. Give yourself unconditional permission to eat. Notice the foods that have more staying power, and we'll talk about this in a little bit. And then be patient with yourself as you try this new skill. Because this is new and we've been, kind of conditioned to eat and think about food and bodies and health in maybe a little bit of a different way. So really getting to be that food anthropologist and going, oh yeah, because I was just talking to someone about, sugar and how bad sugar is, and the sugar's the evil devil of it all, and she was talking about this one person that she follows on social media, and I just said, well, do you think there's any disordered eating going on with this person who you're following, who has the cookbook and the programs and and so it's just, I mean, we all have to do what feels right for our bodies, but it's sometimes, being patient always as we learn a new skill and kind of retrain our thinking. And then speaking of patience, why is patience so important? Because it makes us pay attention. I really liked that quote because that really is, I think, the crux of what we're talking about here with intuitive eating. And I know I mentioned it not really being about food, but it's like as we get more intuitive in our eating, I think we also get more intuitive in our lives and in other things that we're doing. We become more mindful of, oh, I didn't even know there were birds outside while I'm eating breakfast, or, whatever it is, just being more connected with our surroundings and what's going on. Okay, I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'm gonna keep talking. I have a few more slides and then I'll do a check-in. So this is kind of the workbook pieces. The eating without distraction. I don't know if anybody wanted to share, so I guess I will be asking if anybody wanted to share, what do you need in order to feel ready to eat without distraction? Or maybe you're all non-distraction eating people. Maybe it's just me that eats with distraction. But if anybody wants to share, let me know. Noticed for me, my most distracted meal is lunch because it's at home by myself usually, and I'm either working or in between something, and so I'll eat and be on my computer. Or at one point I was eating lunch and watching like a Netflix show as kind of a treat. And I feel like without having that, I feel like lonely, like I'm eating by myself, like I don't know, like even talking on the phone with somebody, like it was just really, it's real, lunch is hard to like be by myself and just, it's quiet. It's like, okay, what's on Netflix? Who called me? What's on so that's the feeling comes up for me when I take away any distractions while I'm eating, is I'm just lonely because I'm by myself at home. Um, Instead of seeing it as like like a reprieve from like my busy day and, oh, this is great. And I have started in the summertime or springtime going outside and eating on my patio. And that was a nice change of location. I didn't feel as lonely. My dogs would follow me out and want to eat my food, but it was like, okay, that the loneliness kind of went away. But that's just what I noticed for me, is having something there while eating made me feel less lonely. And I just started with trying to eat with a certain meal without distractions, like I said. And I know when I was in my training, Evelyn said that some people can eat while doing other things and it doesn't affect their ability to know when they're full. So this isn't like the thing you have to do in order to, really get this. But if you are having a hard time or noticing that you're eating more than you want to eat at a meal, the distraction piece may be, the first thing to look at. And then optimal eating environment. Kind of like what you were saying, Joy, like kind of when people are having issues with their sleep, they say only sleep in your bed, don't work, don't, do all these other things. And so maybe it's like same thing with like the dining table, like just have it'd be a meal thing. Like our kitchen table is sometimes my office, sometimes the homework desk, sometimes, it serves so many purposes. So it would be nice to have it just be one thing. And then also that creating a pleasant environment and what that would look like for you. And also was this the one? I don't think this was the one about who you want to eat with, but it just more about, yeah, the ambiance of eating. Did anybody try the left hand eating experiment, or any insights anybody want to mention? Okay, I'll move on. So these are probably, like, if you've been in any nutrition or diet, anything, you probably know all of this, but just because this is an intuitive eating class, the staying power of foods, the things that increase fullness, things like protein, which helps with the satiety levels. Foods high in protein include meat, beans, poultry, nuts, yogurt, and fish. Fats contribute to the fullness, to feeling full in two ways. First, the presence of fat in a meal slows down the rate of digestion, and fat is also the slowest part of food to be digested. So it plays a significant role in prolonging that fullness feeling. Some high fat foods include nuts, oils, butter, nut butter, full fat dairy, and avocados. And then carbs, our favorite, the villainized food that, people say, don't eat them, but eat them, but don't eat them, but don't eat too many. They add bulk, which also contributes to satiety, and they can also help keep the blood sugar level normal. And pasta, bread, rice, beans, fruit all have carbs. And then fiber is an indigestible type of carbohydrate, which adds bulk and also slows down the absorption of carbs into the bloodstream. And it's one reason why, a sandwich on whole grain bread may give you more fullness or staying power than a white bread. And then on the little staying power, we've got high bulk, low calorie foods. So veggies and fruits, they have, you can get a lot of, I guess you get fiber with them, right? But you can eat a lot with very low calories. Air foods, we kind of talked about those, like the rice cakes, puffed cereal, popcorn. I know I've had some clients who are like, I just love popcorn and I just want to have popcorn, and I get it. Yeah, you can eat a lot of popcorn. And then, like, the artificial sweetened foods and low carbohydrate foods, a lot of times they'll have that sugar alcohol in them and indigestible fibers. So sometimes that sugar alcohol can really play havoc on the digestion. But it may make you feel more full because it's got those indigestible fibers in it. So energy bars can have this in that, sugar-free gelatin, low-carb desserts, etc. And then the last bite threshold. I don't know if anybody wants to share on that. Or also on your fullness discovery scale journal, if there was any, like, oh, I had no idea that eating whatever made me so full or made me not very full. If anybody has any insights to share or not. Anybody on the last bite threshold? Okay, I'll share. Let's see. I felt a little sad, but also really aware. The sadness passed. I felt a little deprived, but also glad when I stopped. I noticed I did wake up hungrier the next day. And I think it's not like, I don't think the idea is to not eat enough food. I think the idea is just to notice when, okay, I'm getting full. Like, I think this is the end of this meal, and to, move on and trust that, there'll be another meal that will be enjoyable in the future. So there's 38 different ones. I don't know if I'll be able to incorporate all 38, just because some of them may never make sense for what we're doing, but I think I'm going to aim. I don't think I've repeated any yet. So that is my personal challenge, to get all 38 into this without repeating. one week I'm like, so this one, it's going to make no sense, but I want to make sure we get it in. Yeah. Okay, so these ones, ignore the positive thinking, but they could be for positive thinking as well. Beach, impatience, and walnut. And I know I say it every week, but I do love all of these. Okay, so beach is indicated for people who are constantly making criticisms, intolerant of other people's shortcomings, and unable to make allowances. And I would also say not just about other people, but for yourself as well. So if you find that you're a really critical person, another B word here, I'm not going to say it, but you know what I mean? Like, it could be helpful to just kind of bring it down a notch. They find it hard to see the good in others. The positive potential is tolerance and a sense of compassion for others and unity with others. And then the positive beach person can see the good in others despite their imperfections. So I will use this one a lot mostly when I'm feeling critical about myself. Sometimes when I'm feeling critical with others, but a lot of times just my own self-critic going at me. I'm like, okay, I need to just help myself here a little bit. This other one, again, it's just lovely. Impatience, which you can imagine is for people who are easily irritated, impatient. They want everything done instantly. They act, think, and speak quickly. These people are capable and efficient, but irritated and frustrated by slow coworkers, and they therefore prefer to work alone. Or you could fill in the blank: slow drivers, anybody that's slow, right? Like the customer service person, whatever, whoever it is, it's not going fast enough. The positive impatience people are more relaxed, good-humored, sympathetic to those who are slow, and they cope calmly and diplomatically with irritating problems. So this is another great one. I get this one, when I'm feeling impatient with my kids or anything. And I put this one in here because I really wanted to support that idea of patience with ourselves, right? As we're learning, am I full? Am I not full? Oh, dang it. I had too much for dinner. Darn it. I did it again. Just having patience as we're learning to tune in. Oh man, I can't not eat without something in front of me, and just having patience for myself. That's okay. For right now, that's okay. All right, and then the last one is walnut. Is for those who find it difficult to adapt to change or oversensitive to certain ideas, atmospheres, and influences. It is the remedy for times of major life change, breaking away from old ties and restrictions. And the reason I put this one in is as we're moving into like a new way of thinking about food and eating and our bodies, it really is a breaking away from, kind of the status quo, from things we've been taught forever. People needing this remedy want to move forward, but may be held back from links from the past. So feeling like you're stuck, feeling like, even, I don't know if this isn't necessarily a trauma remedy, but it's more that idea of saying, I've been taking this one all week, by the way, saying that you want to do something. I want to do this, but you just can't like motivate and actually launch and do it. So walnut helps with it helps the ability to move forward, to remain steadfast to one's path in life, free of the past, make necessary changes, carry plans through despite, those around you who may be discouraging or ridiculing you. So it's been a good one for me all week. I've felt great. I've made a lot of forward motion. I don't know if I'm going to just keep taking that one. And then dosing 4 drops of each flower essence in your beverage or food. You can also diffuse them. You can also create a blend. So I know I've mentioned many of them now. You can do up to 7 different essences in one bottle. So to do that, you would just get like a spray bottle or a dropper bottle and do 4 drops of each in the bottle. And then I fill the rest with water. And then you can just do 4 sprays of that. So that kind of helps stretch your Bach flowers. And the blend, sometimes some of them work better with each other. So it's just a nice way of dosing that I don't think I've mentioned before. Yeah, Roseanne.
How long do you take the remedy? I mean, like you said,
Mm.
if you wake up one day and you're impatient, you just start taking it. I mean, uh, uh, it's a hard to understand.
Sure. Yeah, I think for me, I'll usually it'll depend. Like sometimes there's certain ones I take more consistently until like a feeling has passed. Like,
Hmm.
I can't say, oh, take them for 2 weeks, but I would say if you're not feeling anything from the ones you're taking after like a week of taking them, then it's probably not matching what you need.
Okay.
But I would say I kind of on and off, like I will put a blend together, on the mornings I think about it. And sometimes they have the similar ones. Sometimes I'm doing, the ones that I feel like I need for that day. Um, you can't overdose on them, so they're not going to hurt you.
Hmm.
But for me, I just kind of go with like, there's some I don't even use anymore because I'm like, oh yeah, I don't feel that one. Like I need that one at all. And then there's new ones that I'm like, oh wow, I didn't know I needed that one. Like that willow, I'm like, darn, I don't have any of that from last week, the resentment one. So, yeah, it just kind of, I mean, you're very intuitive. So I would go with how you feel when you feel like a state has kind of passed and you've kind of healed that layer, then you can move on to another one.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Cap, you're muted.
There we go. Is it 4 drops in every glass or
Mm-hmm.
just in the 4 drops in every glass?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why it's nice to create a blend because then you're not, I mean, that's a lot of drops in a day, in terms of your bottle. You kind of go through a bottle kind of quickly. If
Yeah.
you make a blend, then, and I can make you a blend. I have made you a blend, but if you want a
Okay.
new blend, let me know.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Cap,
Thanks.
Cap is my mom, Carol Ann. So I don't know if she's not putting, well, I guess you wouldn't know that by your last name either, but yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know why I put cap, but there I put it. So, hi,
There you go.
everybody. I'm her mom.
She want any juicy stories. She knows them all.
Yeah,
Between
I
she and
wasn't sure she
Joy.
wanted to advertise that.
Yeah, yeah. And she and Joy, they know the juice, the juicy
Joy,
story.
yeah, and Claire, yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so any other questions? Otherwise I'm gonna jump into the homework for chapter 6. Okay, so this is a discover the satisfaction factor. This may feel like a new concept because I think when we're always on diets, we don't always get to like what we're eating. We're just eating what's on the plan and in the quantity and just, oh, well, I don't like this, but I'm going to eat it anyways because they said this is what I'm supposed to eat. So sometimes the question of what do you really like and want to eat is like, I have no idea. I'm so used to just eating the off of the low-cal menu or whatever it is. So this chapter will introduce you to like, what do you like to eat? What sounds good? There's also a little meditation, an I eat scripted activity. So what I did when I did it is I just created a little voice recording on my phone. And then I listened to it while I was eating. Um, it goes through all the senses. So the sight, the smell, the touch, the sound, just how it feels in your mouth, and then the taste. So it really slows you down to really appreciate whatever the food is. Again, to really be able to tune into what is satisfying, what tastes good. It also talks about your eating environment, really making it a pleasant place. And also there's one other thing I wanted to point out. Um, I forgot. So if it comes to me, I will let you know. Also your emotional atmosphere, and we'll get into the coping with emotions with kindness. I think that might be the next chapter. Not this next week, but the week after. Yeah, so I have nothing more to add. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and you know how to reach me. Those are the same resources we've been using. So I'm going to stop